If now the Notion sidebar for Teams used to be like this, now we can turn it into this. Notion has just released a feature that is going to put order, that it was a lot needed, into team workspaces. Okay, let me show you how it works and how we can make the most out of it. Okay, so first of all, this new feature is called teamspaces. And I think the best way that I can explain you what this does is to show you how things worked before and how things are gonna work from now on. So here we have a little comparison of the before. So this box represents the current workspace. So this was like the biggest container within our Notion. So one workspace is what contains typically everything in our Notion. And then within this workspace, we have all the pages and databases. Okay, and then we can assign permissions to each of them. But that was about it. Now, what happens after? Now, this is what we have. We still have the same unique workspace, but within it, we have different team spaces. And then within the team spaces is where we have the pages and databases. So what this allows us to do is to have a more granular permission for each of the team spaces that we couldn't do before with just a simple workspace. It will just be a more tedious process because we will have to go into each of the pages or databases and assign the permissions as we want. And in order to make all these new permissions happen, there is gonna be new roles that are gonna be added to Notion. Before, we simply have the workspace owner, the workspace member. So this is all the paid users that are within the workspace, and then the guests that we may invite them to one or two pages and they didn't cost us a dime. But now things change a little bit. We still have the same three, but Notion has added two extra: the team space owner, which is kind of the same as the workspace owner, but affects just to the team space, and the team space member, which is someone who has access to a team space, but is not an owner. So of course, he will have limited permissions over what to do within the team space. Okay, so let's get inside of Notion to see how this feature actually works. So we can see here on the sidebar that this new team spaces part has emerged. So by default, every workspace will have one team space, which is gonna be called general, and that everybody has access to. We will get that in a moment, but now how do we create new team spaces? So here we have the plus icon, and we can create a new team space here, which can be for our video team. Okay, so here we start to see some permissions. By default, the team space is gonna be open, and this means that everybody can see this team space and everybody can join this team space if they haven't been invited. Then closed is everybody can see it and people can request to join. So therefore the team space owner is going to accept or reject that request. And finally, private is that the team space is going to be hidden from everyone that is not part of it, and people can just get invited to it. But this is just for enterprise accounts. So I'm going to create this as open. Now here I'm prompted to invite who is going to be part of the team space, but I'm going to skip this for now. And this is the default template that we have for this team space. Okay, but so far here, there is one thing that I didn't explain. I just created a team space, but how do I have the permission to create one? Okay, good question. If we go over here to team spaces, we have this setting that is limit team space creation to only workspace owners. So as we saw before, this is the role that the person should have, workspace owner. And I have this checked. So far, I am here the only workspace owner, so I am the only one able to create team spaces. So this is the template that was created when I created a team space. And how can we modify this template? Well, we cannot. So this is what we have. So probably we will have to delete it and to pull something that we really care about. But anyway, it's cool that they don't leave us in a blank page. Okay, so then in this new team space that we just created, how do we invite people over? So we will go here, team space settings, and here we can add members. Within here, we can also invite groups. So if before we were using groups, we can invite the full group here. So for example, I have my YouTube group, which is my editor and me. So I can invite this group, or I can invite individual people. I can also make them team space owner, which will grant them access to all the team space settings over here. Okay, so how do people join team spaces without getting invited? So in order to show you, I have invited another person within the team space, which is another account that I have. And then with the current account that I am in, I'm gonna leave this team space. So this team space is no longer within my sidebar, but what if I want to join it? So I will have to go over here, and this is all the team spaces that are available for me to join. And since this was public one, so I can just click join and I will join. So you can think of this as the Slack channels within Slack, that if they are set to open, everybody can join, and there's gonna be a list of all the channels that you are not part of, but that you can join. So this is kind of the same. So I will just click on join, and that is it. That team space will be added to my sidebar. Okay, so this is pretty much all the theory, but as always, the theory is just not so interesting. But what is more interesting is how we are gonna end up using all of this. So since everybody that joins our workspace is gonna have access to at least one of the team spaces, and by the way, we can set this right here, default team spaces. So it makes sense that we start storing the core databases that we want to share with all the team, and that doesn't contain any confidential information within the general team space. Why? Because if we have this tasks team space database, for example, inside of this general team space, we can go to another team space and create a linked database to this tasks database. Okay, it's empty because I just created it. So this is to exemplify that everything that is within here, we will be able to see from any other team space. But then for databases that contain probably more confidential information or information that just relates to one particular team, it doesn't make sense that we are gonna store it here in the general team space. So it makes sense that we store the core database within the team space itself. So this is what is happening, for example, here. This is my YouTube team space, and here is where I'm storing the YouTube videos database, the core database. And like this, just the members of this team space are gonna have access to it. Because we can see that here everyone at Daniel Canosa, this is the workspace, has no access, so just the members of this team space will have. Okay, so how can we start using these team spaces from day one? If you're a little bit afraid that you're gonna break something, from day one, you don't need to do anything. Everything is going to keep working the same way it was working before. You will just have everything that you previously had within the general team space, and that is it. The permissions are gonna remain the same, everything is gonna remain the same, the structure, everything. So you don't need to do anything. But if you wanna start using team spaces for having all these more granular permissions and everything, you do the exercise and place all the databases that you want to be sharing with everyone inside of the general workspace. And then probably if you've been using Notion before, you may have a page for each department, and you can turn those into team spaces themselves. So right now, this option is disabled. Okay, so I've been checking and the option was not disabled. I was just doing it wrong. In order to turn one page into its own team space, we need to have that page already into one team space. So let's say that I want to turn this page into its own team space. So I will have to drag it to the HQ team space in this case. And then I have this option to turn into a team space. But this doesn't work if I drop this into a team space that has the permission closed. Okay, so the team space should be open in order for me to turn this into a team space, because you can see that I lost the option. And if I drop it here, I have the option again. Also, one thing to note is that this doesn't work with subpages. Okay, so all the pages that we want to turn into team spaces, we have to drop into the root of a team space that is open. Okay, so back to the video. And then let's imagine that we hire a new person or that we onboard a new person into our workspace. How do we make it easy? So if we already have groups created, let's say that we have this management group. I didn't know we can have an icon. And we add a new management person, so we will still add that person to the group. And if we have that group with access to, let's say, the collaborators team space, we can add management. So every new hire that is going to go within the management group is going to have access also to this team space. So this is how I will do it, just by adding people to the group. And if we have all the groups already set up for each of the team spaces, then that person is going to automatically have access to everything that he wants. Okay, now some other use cases. Let's say that you have a company with physical location and you want to create a team space for each of the physical locations. You will set it as open, and in there you will have the map of the facility, like everything that relates to that physical location, so people can join and leave as they please. And since there is nothing confidential there, I will just set it as open so everybody can join. Another use case, of course, will be to have a team space for each of the departments. And if they have confidential information, such as the HR department, which may have some salary information, then I will create those as closed, or if you have an enterprise account, as private, so nobody can even see those team spaces. And finally, let's say that you are preparing an event, or I don't know, an all hands meeting or something like this, and you can create a temporal team space. And why do I say temporal if this is something that I haven't explained? Well, because if you go over here, we have the possibility to archive a team space. Let's join the test one that I created before. So let's say that we've been using this team space for organizing something that is temporal, and we'll have all this information here, blah, blah, and then the event finished. So we may want to archive. Okay, I'm no longer the owner of this team space because my other account has it, but let's say that, yeah, we finish with this team space and we have this opportunity to archive the team space. So we will just click here, we click collaborators and archive team space. We can, of course, bring that team space back, but we have to go to the settings, go to the archives and restore. Well, what do you think of this new feature? Are you overwhelmed by all the things that you're gonna have to set up? Well, tell me in the comments how you're gonna be using it. And if you wanna know more about how to use Notion for businesses, I have created this video over here in which I show you which is the simplest system that I have found that works for 90% of the remote companies. So that is it for now. And as always, guys, hasta la próxima.